Hi, this is Angie, and I just checked, and it's Chocolate Sunday 34. I've been just video logging for a few years now, and it's my hope that any survivors, or any just people, or anybody that watches, enjoys it, and if not, it's not my primary goal. Full self-expression is, and that sense of I don't want to die and wish I said that or left this or recorded the other. I don't plan on dying soon, but it's kind of good to live that way, like every day, as if life was short. And so one of the things I do, I don't have a huge following, that's okay, it's not for that either, but one of the things I do regularly in my journalism work or activism work or public speaking, vlogging work, whatever, is I often quote scriptures and I often speak faith. And I just wanted to back that up because watching what's been happening in Hampstead and what happens around these last days, child abuse and corruption in general and cover-up and breakdowns in the systems of this planet as it's currently hurtling towards self-destruct again. What was that channel? Oh yeah. So I realised how many times that miracles have happened, and I wanted to give credit and give some substance to why I say pray, or miracles are possible, whatever else, like scripture quoting. It's not just brainwashing I'm subject to, or so that's it. There is a scripture, I think it's in Revelation. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb, the word of their testimony, and that they weren't afraid even unto death. And my return to work, as my youngest is getting ready hopefully to go for surgery next week and then off to college at 18, the rest of whatever time other than being alive and enjoying life, but the rest of my commitment is to do what I can to make a difference to end child abuse, and to have a more transparent society, people that will stop trying to put a mask on and pretend to be something they're not, and hide stuff, and secret societies, and lies and cover-ups. I'm just allergic to secrets as an abuse survivor myself, and product of societies that will, what will the neighbours think, and what will people say, and you're making a show of yourself and all that rubbish. We're human. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and in this part of eternity there is nobody perfect. So survivors, if they stay alive and don't get swallowed up by addiction, homelessness, suicide, prostitution, self-harming, self-destruct in any manner of ways, despair, or a lifetime's mask, will transition first of all from victim, then to survivor. A lot of abuse, a lot of adults that have been sexually or physically or emotionally or psychologically abused in childhood during the formative years will call themselves survivors. And for me, there's another step on the journey, which is to become an overcomer. And the mark of an overcomer to me is somebody that is not saying it's all perfect, everything's wonderful, it never happened, but it's somebody who not only declares and kind of starts to live like I'm not a victim anymore, I've survived. To me, an overcomer is somebody who goes to the next level and say, okay, you know, anybody else I can help, or you know, what can I just end it, or you know, roll up their sleeves and say, okay, you know, I still have wounds, I don't have mental illnesses, I have mental injuries, but if I manage them, and you know, if somebody's got my back, I can help. Anybody need help, that kind of thing. So, and the overriding thing for me is not about, you know, being a campaigner or an online activist or a protester or a philosopher or, you know, even journalist. It's about, because for me, I know I wouldn't have survived without my God and without my faith. So I'm just going to try and put some substance to that. Just randomly, but just so many multiple examples where with faith a different choice could be made, or where God did a miracle. The thing closest to my heart, I suppose, and the thing very relevant for survivors in particularly in England, but also, you know, in America and across Europe, is this thing of having your children taken from you. So suddenly a lot of female survivors end up as single parents because we are wounded in the area of having healthy relationships, mostly in terms of self-esteem. So we will just attract either wounded fathers or absent fathers, or fathers that remind us of our own or our abusers, and repeat the cycle. So I'm just going to randomly try and pull up, because there's so many. I was raised Catholic with a Protestant edge, because my mother was Church of England, Sunday school teacher, schooled on the scriptures, but converted like so many English girls, as was socially engineered actually, but converted to Catholicism to marry my father. So even though I was educated by nuns till the age of 12, and kind of brainwashed into the Irish Catholic Republican heritage that my father thought was his, my mum had a huge influence as well. So I haven't written these. I've got one of the symptoms, one of the whatever things I'm left over with is ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. My son has it too. And there's quite a lot, actually, variations, autism, Asperger's in the extended family. And I believe they're all, to a great extent, mental injuries, and also probably connected to vaccines too. So, the nuns the nuns were training us to be ladies. And so part of that was sewing. And they used to get frustrated with me because I wouldn't pin and tack. I just wanted to go straight to the sewing. And even if you take that the whole way, I'd rather just drape a fabric creatively and pin it and just wear it. I want to get from A to Z. I don't want to like take the necessary steps. So, but I was disappointed recently when Abe and Ella withdrew from the projected 4-day custody hearing in Hampstead as to the next step for the children. And although the grounds were reasonable, and withdrawing as a means of protest is an option, it's not what I would do. And I thought, well, based on what? So there were many attempts to take my 3 children from me. My eldest is 29. She was born April 1986 in Marin General Hospital in Green Bay, Marin County, California. I lost a baby before her about 1983 in London. The father was a Lebanese guy, and I lost that baby at 5 months pregnant, so that's another child. And Josh had a twin, so I consider myself a mother. I lost Josh's twin, but he survived. So I have 3 living children, and 2 in heaven, and a high-functioning life, given the injuries I sustained from in utero to, you know, who knows when you could draw a line. I don't think it's ended now, even, to be honest, in terms of. But High Functioning Live learned a lot, you know, taught a lot of what I needed to learn. Programmed to be a high achiever, but lots of chaos too. And the most obvious evidence of wounding was no consistent, healthy relationship with either of the. Well, there were 3 fathers of my 5 children, and none of them even felt like choices on my part. That hurts my children, and I hate saying it, but we've talked this through. It doesn't make it any better. I can't help that they've been born into an intergenerational abusive family, and I've apologised to them for making poor choices in who I had children with, and I've also encouraged them to not hate the half of themselves that was a result of their fathers, you know, regardless of what part they played in their lives. But so men and relationships have been a disaster. You know, 11 proposals, 3 engagements, 2 divorces, you know, chaos. I don't know which one. I'll just go through the 3 children, the times that they were that God did miracles. Gabriella was, where do I start? It's so emotional. I'll try and just keep focused on little incidents where God showed up, and I didn't pull back, and I could have pulled back, as you know, Abraham and Ella and Sabine chose to leave the country, and Belinda has now, rather than risk arrest and silencing. And sometimes that's a tactical decision that's good, so I'm not particularly saying, oh, do it my way. I'm just trying to say why I speak so boastfully on God's behalf, saying he can do anything. So, I said about arrests. I was arrested at gunpoint, 7 months pregnant, in California, in the Spinnaker restaurant in Sausalito. Oh yeah, and this is the reason why I think I'm going to send Josh with my 18-year-old Jamie to Florida for surgery, because even though I got away with this at the time, I've gone on record before saying that I did a green card marriage. So, you know, it seemed like the best bad set of choices at the time. But it is on record now. I noticed myself just going to address that again. So, you know, that and the fact that I'm, you know, an online activist and not afraid to speak out against people in high places who I believe are doing wrong on a spectacular scale. So I probably won't take that risk of going to America and messing up my kid's surgery by me being, you know, to do with my work or my chaotic life, having a drama. So, similarly with England, I could be, you know, there's probably at least 50-50 chance of being arrested if I go, or when I go to England. And that's not drama. I don't plan on being arrested, actually, but because this is the thing. The point I'm making is that with God, the likely outcome is often not the outcome, because you know, He's God of miracles. But in America, I emigrated in '85 with my degree. Did I have my postgrad studies at that time? Yeah, I think I did. Postgrad studies in journalism, degree in literature, English, European, American literature, multilingual, thinking, right, let's go off and be an actress or a journalist in America. And got pregnant within 5 weeks and was too embarrassed to come back home to Ireland, as it was then. So decided, right, first of all, I decided I could have an abortion, and then I didn't. I pulled out a couple of nights before it was booked, after a very prophetic and profound dream. So then I thought, right, let's make a life with my child, and the father was going to marry me. Not that we were in love. He you know, it was a bad, ill-suited match, and he later turned out to be a paedophile anyway, probably placed there. But I didn't know that back then. So at first, when I said, right, I'm not having an abortion, I'll do this on my own if you won't support me, I'm not going home, don't want to go back to Ireland with a fat belly 5 weeks after emigrating. Well, it wouldn't be a fat belly at that point, but you know what I mean. So anyway, he said, right, I'll marry you just for your green card, but, you know, just so that we can be cooperative parents, but clearly it's not a love match. Even though we tried half-heartedly to make it work, but it was never a compatibility thing or even an attraction thing. It was a case of me being vulnerable, me being pursued, and not having the tools to actually protect myself and make good choices. So he was already twice divorced by then, with 2 children from the second marriage. And he was like a what do you call it, a sex addict, you know, he slept hundreds of women, and his MO was to sleep with them twice, once to prove he could, and 2 to prove it wasn't random. And that's all. I'd slept with him, I got pregnant on the second time. And I adore my daughter. But a woman that he'd strung along for 20 years, promising to marry her, and had persuaded to have an abortion the one time she got pregnant by him, saying, this isn't the right time, you know, when it's the right time, then I'll marry you, and then we'll have a baby in a proper order, but not right now, and, you know, let's not talk about commitment, let's go on holiday, let's go skiing, and, you know, I love you, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so she'd had an abortion, reluctantly, by him, and been waiting in the wings for 20 years for it to be the right time, and kind of missed her childbearing window, and heard that he was going to marry an Irish girl, as they called me in America. They don't call me that in Ireland because my accent's so bloody English, but in America everybody's like, if you say, you know, if your passport's Irish, you're Irish. So she heard he was going to marry this Irish girl, and that was pregnant. I presume she knew I was pregnant. And in a fit of bitterness, she called immigration on me for overstaying my visa. So I think I had a 6-month tourist visa, and I got busted a month later, working in an Irish-American restaurant. And it was not pleasant. You know, immigration, they weren't told I was pregnant, I found out later. And they came to my place of work. Now, there'd been a dodgy phone call beforehand asking if I was working. And I just had, you know, you get that, I just got a feeling, right, something wasn't right about that. And then they told the maitre d' that I'd won tickets to Mexico, and they showed 2 tickets to Mexico. Which they either bought or, you know, picked up from the previous bust they'd done, because in California there's a lot of illegal Mexicans as well as Chinese, all nationalities really. Irish, there's a lot of illegal Irish too. So anyway, the maitre d' believed it. He came through with a big smile. Oh, you've won 2 tickets to Mexico, and I just kind of knew, my heart sank. Oh. Yeah, I didn't buy lotto tickets or raffle tickets. So anyway, then the guns, and then, you know, you're under arrest for being here illegally and for working illegally. And I was 7 months pregnant. You know, my hands and feet were swollen, my fingers were swollen, I needed to go to the toilet a lot. It felt like Gabrielle was living on top of my bladder. And anxiety, you know, I was still, I don't know, it's pretty vulnerable. So I said, can I call somebody, or can I make a phone call? Can I go and, you know, go and gather up a couple of things. I think they allowed me to go collect my passport, obviously, for confiscation. And I couldn't get anybody on the phone. I made 3 or 4 phone calls, couldn't get anybody, just left a message at my daughter's father's phone saying, look, I'm getting arrested. Can you get in touch with immigration as soon as you get this message? So I get taken to immigration holding cell place in downtown San Francisco and put in an open cell with 15 illegal aliens, is what they're called. Open cell, open toilet, peeing every 5 minutes with 15 other people in the cell, and no door, and then start to get processed and told that I had an engagement ring on because Tony and I were going to get married, so I had this kind of engagement ring on. They were going to cut it off because they couldn't get it off with my swollen fingers, fluid retention. Going to cut it off, processing me, ready to go over to Oakland jail for the night, then ready to be flown back to Ireland the next day. Can't fly it. I don't think you can fly at 7 months pregnant. But that's the way it was looking like. It's the first time I thought of that, even if, like, the normal run of things was to be deported the next day, go in front of a judge and then bang, you're gone. And as scary as it was, I prayed. Just prayed. And was courteous. And as they interviewed me, they were getting more and more. In fact, as the 2 guys like Starsky and Hutch brought me in with my 7-month pregnant belly, the immigration office actually jeered at them and said, you're that desperate for illegal aliens that you're pulling in pregnant women now. And they were like, oh, back off, we didn't know she was pregnant when we got the bus. But anyway, the bottom line is, within about 3 hours I was bailed. My Gabriella's father's roommate picked up the message. He was a doctor. Elliot his name was, specialised in pain management. Jewish guy, highly qualified, wealthy guy. Came in with $500. My bail was set at, I don't know, was it 50,000 and you paid 10%? But anyway, came in with the $500 in 1985, bailed me. And I had told them, father and I are due to get married and it wasn't planned, baby, but we're going to make it work, and blah blah blah. Then a girlfriend that I call her a girlfriend, she's more of an acquaintance at that time, but her father was an attorney, and the point of the bottom line is I got released. I got bailed and released, and I got my green card, and I stayed 5 years, and I think I was a few months short of 5 years where I could have claimed citizenship and actually settled there, which I sometimes regretted not doing, but and I think it was just an unfolding. It was an unpleasant experience, but it had a good ending, in as much as I didn't get deported, I didn't get prosecuted, and I didn't come home to Ireland until my daughter was actually probably 3 and a half. I came home in November '89, I think, having gone out in June '85. Yeah, maybe not quite. Anyway, and I had a great 5 years out there. So that was one scary situation. Another time, and God came through, and it's like, even, I hear horror stories. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to be arrested. I don't even like being stopped. I've always been raised that policemen are our friends, but I know that not all policemen are good guys. So that was that. And then with Gabriella, again, I'll just jump forward on that one. My family tried to kidnap her. Even before, because, black sheep, unmarried. Just to finish that story, the father jilted me then with the fright of me. Like, I was grand. I was the 7-month pregnant lady who'd been arrested at gunpoint and peeing in a cell with 15 other illegal aliens. Fair play to the American-Irish restaurant. They took me straight back to work, no fear, and just said, your job's here, we'll look after you, there's your insurance for your pregnancy, don't worry about anything. They were wonderful. But the father jilted me because he was just, I'm glad actually, but he got more of a fright than I did, and said, oh, I could get a $10,000 fine or 2 years in jail if they find out this is not a genuine marriage. I said, shut up, I'm expecting your child. We have to love each other. We planned on marrying so that you could see your child. Well, with hindsight, with what I found out, I'm glad that didn't happen. And then I was then even 8 months pregnant, and clearly too late to travel, and really thinking, what am I going to do to get out of this mess? And not really born again. Well, I was born again, but not really conscious of it. I mean, I was raised Catholic, believing in God, and then got born again in Brixton in a Jamaican church, didn't know what happened. And then went to California and didn't really find out what it was, this thing of having a living relationship with a God, until Gabriella was about 2. So, pregnant, I was not, even though I believed in God and I knew I'd broken probably all the things the nuns had said were mortal sins, I was a sinner, no doubt about that. I mean, I didn't murder or steal for a living, or I was certainly told a lie about the green card marriage. So yeah, so this gay guy who was possibly another handler, Quentin de Chalfont-Bim. When I say gay guy, he identified himself as gay. He was a superb professional ballet dancer. He'd had a scholarship year at Covent Garden, and he was kind of new agey Californian psychic and workshop leader, like so many were back then in the 70s and 80s. Quentin de Chalfont-Bim, from Kansas or something, from a humble family. I suspect he was another MK Ultra survivor program, and he just said, look, I'm gay, I'm not, I don't have any plans to get married, so let's just go to City Hall and get married, and that way you'll have your paperwork straight and you can raise your child here if that's what you want to do. So I did that, and with hindsight again, would I have been better to come home and say, look, I'm messed up, here I am, big plans to go to America, back home with a baby. I don't know, I can't change the past. And the confusing part was, we never lived together, we'd never had a relationship other than just having to get to know stuff about each other and make up an album and get our stories straight, and be spectacularly interviewed by immigration, video interviewed, to prove that it wasn't a fake marriage. He didn't charge me anything. The going rate was about $5,000, but he didn't charge me anything. But it got messy, in as much as he then declared undying love for me and said he wasn't gay after all, and he really loved me and he really wanted to be Gabriella's father, and blah. And his name's actually on her birth certificate. He's not down as her father, but because I was married, his name is on her birth cert. So I just put her Italian family name as the middle name, knowing that later on she could drop that married name. My name was Angela de Chalfont-Bim. That was my first disastrous non-marriage. So I want to do these quick and short, but the point I suppose I'm trying to make, not very succinctly because nothing's straightforward in my socially engineered and diabolically experimented upon life, but the point I was trying to make was, I've been arrested. I've been arrested at gunpoint. I've been put in a holding cell. I've been processed for Oakland jail. I wouldn't, Bangkok jail's pretty scary. Spanish jails aren't nice, but Oakland jail can be a heavy heavy place. So, and God came through, and I think I don't remember actually losing faith, even though I wasn't really. Gosh, I don't know how I knew that God would get me out of that jam, but He did. He probably was a bit exasperated at my choices of how to solve that situation, but like I said, it was the best I knew, the best way I knew to solve it at the time. And even though, you know, I could take the rap at any time if somebody wanted to say, look, let's arrest her for something she did at age 5, like arresting a politician for having smoked pot at university or something. But the way I squared it with myself at the time was, it was I've refined this logic since, but the way I squared it at the time was, it was an honourable lie, along the lines of, if during the Holocaust, or during, you know, during the pogroms, during World War II or whatever, if the Gestapo knocked on your door and said, are you hiding any Jews in your attic, it would be honourable to lie and say no. And so that was the way I squared it with myself. You know, lying spectacularly to immigration was that it was for the greater good. Thinking as well that I didn't know Gabrielle's father was a child abuser, and you know, probably a handler and probably strategically placed. I didn't know any of that at the time, so I was romantically thinking my daughter deserves to know her father. So therefore, you know, and her father has been a bit lily-livered about making that happen, so let me make it happen. And so that's what I did. Yeah. And I suppose I want to do short. I couldn't possibly give all the instances of when God's done a miracle, but there's one really I want to add actually before I don't like long videos, but mostly I want to just, this isn't actually for the consumer, because you know, I don't monetize these, I don't, you know, have a donate button on my website, which I rarely manage, and I try not even to read the reviews, you know, or see what the trolls are saying, because, you know, I've got too much to do, and I had enough wounding in my life to go searching it out. And I know, like, you don't pay me enough to criticise me. I'd love that. I had a fantasy about, you know, nobody has to watch me online. You know, jog on. If it's not your thing, jog on. But if you want to criticise, like, I had this funny thought that people could pay to comment. Like, I'll blither away, share my story, self-express in this medium for my reasons without monetising. But you don't pay me enough, or at all, to think you have a right to stand in judgment, sit in judgment at your keyboard and tell me what you think, or what's wrong, or blah blah. Or you could, like, you know, I would auction the right to criticise 50 quid a go or 100 quid a go. Maybe not. This is the funny aside. But I suppose, in terms of withdrawing from the court, or even withdrawing from England when it looked like arrest was imminent, I'm a bit humbled actually just by speaking out, because I've said I probably won't risk accompanying my youngest to America for his surgery. I'll send one of my other children as a chaperone, because I don't particularly want to be arrested. So it's not quite in the same. I know if my child was stolen from me, as all of my children, Gabriella was kidnapped. I don't know how long it was for. Probably took me 9 days to catch up with. She was brought back from America early, unbeknownst to me, secreted away to the Isle of Wight to my sister's 40th, father's 70th, big family gathering. I was persona non grata by then, because I was speaking out about I think I'd already disclosed about my grandfather being a sexual abuser. My mother had too. But I was also speaking out about a property that had been dishonourably appropriated by an auntie, my auntie Nora. Dad thought Mum was going to leave him and was consulting solicitors, which was true, and he got rid of properties. He owned my grandparents' house, and he went to his siblings to say, quick, I've got to offload the house, she's seeing solicitors, and signed it over to one sister. At the time it was worth 70 grand, she only had 1,500, so he signed it over for 1,500, she ran out and insured it for 70 grand and sold it a few decades later for 230, which her daughter gaily picked up, and threw my father 5,000, I think, for, I don't know what for, guilt money, blood money, I don't know. So at that time I was shouting about that, because Mum and Dad had reconciled, and my mother would never have threatened the home of her parents-in-law or Auntie Philly. My mother was very honourable, very British honourable, and was outraged that my dad's excuse for signing away what that particular property was, oh, I couldn't risk you putting my parents' home at risk, or Philly's roof over her head, out of malice. Which is bullshit. But anyway, when they reconciled, Mum said, right, ask Auntie Nora, ask your sister Nora to give the house back, and give her back her 1,500. I think Dad hadn't just given her the house for 1,500, he'd actually given her thousands. He set her up a business, bought a business for her out of the Pike, and just, we were quite not wealthy, but we had a restaurant then, and good turnover, award-winning Irish restaurant in Wiltshire at that time, and buying and selling horses, Dad was, and fairly wealthy, middle-class successful, I don't know. But anyway, he really set Auntie Nora up, and when she was invited to hand the house back, she said, no, I bought it. And so I'd spoken out about that, and therefore was not welcome. She'd said to my sister, Fiona, that's dead actually, if Angela's going to be at your 40th, I'm not coming. So Fiona, God forgive her, said, Angie, you can't come. You're upsetting all the family, going on about Grandad and going on about dirty deals in property. But they wanted my daughter, and they also wanted to, by that stage, I think Gabriella was about 9, and they didn't like my choice of husband, which was the father of my sons, Paul Disney, and they didn't like the fact that we were both born-again Christians by that time and thought we were in a cult. And we're going to hatch a plan to take my daughter off me and have a different sister adopt her. And Fiona, being a senior social worker, could have made that happen. She was in child protection on the Isle of Wight. She qualified and she trained in Ipswich originally. And that was the plan, was take Angela's daughter, get her back from away early, don't tell her you've got her back early, take her to the family party at the Isle of Wight because she's so adorable, and it seems that her kids turn out great, but it must be despite her, not because of her. We don't want Angie, but let's take her adorable offspring. So yeah, I only found out that Gabriella had been kidnapped by the family for 5 days when I went to meet her off the airplane at Heathrow at the arranged time. She was in America for an access visit to her father's family with a chaperone, which was my niece Louise. But there'd been an emergency and they'd been brought home early, and I hadn't been told, because they wanted to take her to the party in the Isle of Wight and further the family plan for the social worker sister to arrange for the other sister, which is Sharon, to adopt my daughter. And when I was just booking my flight to go from Ireland to Heathrow to meet Gabriella, that's when my father said, don't bother, she's already back. And I was like, what? Yeah, she came back a few days ago. Well, where is she? I don't know. And then I started phoning around, like in a state of shock. Gabriella was only, she was 9. And she was like, she can't even have been 9. I'll have to pin 40, I'll do the sums another time, but... And I'd phone each of the sisters and they'd all deny knowledge of where she was. And obviously my anxiety levels were raising. And then I was phoning the Isle of Wight, where all, I think 150 extended family were gathering for this huge 40th and 70th. And I was getting more and more concerned, and I was in Ireland, and I didn't probably have cash flow to just jump on planes, go searching for her. And being, you know, if your child's being hidden, you can run around like a headless chicken all you like on a shoestring. And they kept lying to me, and that Sharon was, I think, married to Hutch at that time. Hutch is another bloodline family that she has a child with, so many in our family. But anyway, I couldn't find out where my daughter was and what was going on. And I prayed in, yeah, but I wasn't poor at that time, because I think we both prayed in tongues, which is glossolalia, which is when you don't know what to pray. I think in the Bible it says if you don't know what to pray, just pray in the Spirit, which is another word for praying in tongues, and the Holy Spirit will interpret your need to the throne of God, even if you don't intellectually know. I mean, how do you pray when your child's been kidnapped by your own family and you can't find your child? You know, you're in Ireland, your child's supposed to be en route back from America to London, and everything's changed and nobody will tell you where your child is. So I prayed in tongues, I think Paul did too, and after about 3 or 4 days of not being able to track her down and phoning and not getting any answer, immediately after praying, Gabriella was close to a phone and picked it up. And I heard her voice. I said, "Mummy, Mummy, where are you? Why didn't you come?" And then the phone grabbed off her, and then not allowed to speak to her anymore. And that night was the 40th and 70th, and I just kept praying and praying and praying. I was relieved to have gotten hold of her, encouraged that God hears prayer, because I tried for 4 days to talk to her. And they were furious that their system of not letting her anywhere near the phone or out of contact failed. And then just prayed the rest of the day as the party approached, and phone, found out where it was, prayed. Again, another miracle where I think it might have been Gabriella's half-sister that had come with her from California. Or it might have, yeah, I think her half-sister just wandered randomly past the public phone in the hotel, and I managed to say to her, "Please, you've got to help me, they've kidnapped Gabriella, you've got to get Gabriella to the phone, I need you to speak." And I'd selected a cousin that I thought I could trust. There was a small little born-again branch of the family. I think I got Shireen to come to the phone, and then I got a word to Uncle Jerry, and I got word to Uncle Jerry, they're kidnapping Gabriella, please, please, please bring her home, please bring her back to me in Ireland, I can't get over there, and even if I do, they're hiding her from me, please rescue my daughter. And he did, and he stood up to the entire family. Now, I think he hid Gabriella under the table in this huge, fancy, expensive, banquety type holiday. She talks about hiding with cousin Geraldine under the white linen tablecloths at Uncle Jerry's instruction, while he went to get the car to ferry her away and back to her mother in Ireland. And I mean, it was just a series of miracles to get Gabriella to answer the phone, to get the half-sister to walk past a random hotel phone, to get Shireen to get word to Uncle Jerry, and to get Uncle Jerry to say, yes, of course, I would never condone a child being stolen from her mother, and I know you know, I know for all your, I don't know how would he have described me, loose cannon, I don't know, unpopular, like whistleblowing, whatever, for all your persona, Angie, I know you're a good mother, so of course I'll bring your daughter back, even if the family goes mad. So, I wasn't there. Gabriella tells this amazing, exciting adventure story about her and Geraldine hiding silently under a linen tablecloth-covered table, and somehow Jerry's plan, he didn't manage to sneak away without anybody seeing, and then the sisters and family made frantic phone calls to me, having ignored me for days as a mother in despair before that. But then when they heard Jerry was bringing her back, oh, it's not appropriate, and there's things you don't know, and blah blah blah, and that's outrageous, and you know, you should be much better off being raised with Sharon, blah blah blah. But it didn't matter. It was another example of when God did miracles, and I got my daughter back. And on the next Chocolate Sunday, maybe straight after this, I don't know, but I'll talk about when my 2 boys were kidnapped for 5 days in Oldcastle, and it was covered up by a colluding guard, policeman, school headmaster, GP, friends, inverted commas. It was a miracle again, getting my kids back that time. And I'll tell that story in the next vlog, but it's just some of... I am humbled, actually. I am humbled saying Abe and Ella should not have withdrawn. Actually, I do believe they shouldn't have withdrawn. Withdrawal and detachment, it may be a strategy at war, but where my kids are concerned, I would risk death, and I have escaped assassination attempts. I have escaped death multiple times. I'm not talking flippantly, but where my children are concerned, I would rather trust God and walk straight into the flames rather than withdraw tactically and then give a diatribe on everybody else whose fault it is. So, and having said that, I'm trying not to be haughty because, you know, if there's no need to risk arrest, like going to America with my son to accompany him for his surgery, or making a statement to Wiltshire police about historical abuse, or the Lower Goddard inquiry, I probably will go to England, you know. And if I'm arrested, you know, I don't plan on being arrested, but I pray. And I know God is bigger. He's bigger than any corruption. He's bigger than any demonic plan. He's bigger than any, you know, policeman or bench judge or, you know, immigration official. Or as long as a human being's breathing, they are open to doing the right thing. Every human being. I hope that corrupted DNA, hybrid type human beings, you know, as in the days of Noah, I hope they're too able to be saved. I'm not sure about that, but that's a theological debate. But every human being, no matter how gone over to corruption and evil, or even folly, every human being breathing, in my opinion, can repent, can do the right thing. Even a King Cyrus that never comes to know Jesus can still be brooded over by the Holy Spirit and caused to bless the children of God. So that's one of my testimonies to a great God. I don't say it as when I say pray or when I quote scriptures, I don't say it lightly. I don't even say it from an intellectual argument. I say it because I've seen the goodness of God in my life so many times, that I would be churlish not to want to get excited about that and say, look, you know, He can do this for you too. That, you know, when everything else looks hopeless, you know, God can do miracles. God bless, and have a lovely Sunday. I'm sad, actually. I am sad, but it's been in my heart to do this for ages, and you know, if we make a bucket list, I want to show off about God every single thing in my life He's done. He's done amazing things, amazing healings, amazing deliverances, amazing, just, and I don't want to go without telling of every single one. Thanks and God bless.